Fuck me. Take 7,201. Hey nerds, it's Nathan and I'm back with another book review as I said I would be, and today it is The Mask of Mirrors. Check out that exquisite cover art. Yeah, that's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. This has to be one of, if not my favorite book of the year. I know that's some hype and I know I say I love every book that I review, but honestly, this is one of my favorites. It is. This was been a cracker book. Now, let me just fix that. There we go. The book follows our main character, Ren. Now, Ren is a con artist, and this is a fantasy long con. This isn't just like, oh, I swindle someone here, I swindle someone there. This is a big, big game. This is a serious mission, really. So, her and her, not blood sister, but her and her bonded sister, I should say, are trying to ingratiate themselves into a noble house. She's pretending to be a daughter of a cousin that was removed from the noble registry years and years ago. And this is where it all sort of kicks off, really. Ren was basically a gutter rat. It's a rags to riches kind of tale, except it continuously goes wrong at each step of the way. The fantasy landscape is fantastic because we have the main set of the main city, but then we have kind of like an opposing culture sort of situation happening. We have the original denizens of this city-state, if you will, that was taken over, and now the more nobility of it is by the people called the Leganti, and people from an area called Stestern. Fantasy names are hard. But regardless of that, it creates this really, really unique setup for the rich and the poor, if that makes sense. It creates a much more even divide between who is wealthy and who has power and who doesn't, for the simple fact there's also a massive cultural difference. And I think that I don't know how to describe it, but it just makes a really, really, really unique dynamic, because it's not just about, I can look down my nose at you because you're not nobility, or you're not upper class, or you're not part of the Delta gentry. I can generally scoff at your ways of life because your ways of life are so different, and that's because the original city-state that they live in, Vereznia, that was originally ruled by a tyrant. Tyrant got taken out, and then the people from Stestern, the Leganti, they all came in and sort of slowly readapted everything. They basically were like, we're going to make, a people's court. We're going to make what they call the quintet, or the quintarium. And this is basically where large houses create the legal and politics system, and then also the charter system, which is basically how people, especially people in power, continuously make money, continuously to gain power. Nothing works without a registered charter. You want to trade, you want to do security, you want to do military, you want to do anything, you need a registered charter. And to do that, you need to rub elbows with the rich and powerful. And that's kind of where we have our situation. We have Ren, who is a Vereznian gutter rat. She is a local trueborn, whatever you want to call it, and she's trying to worm her way up into the high society. There is so many good little elements here. I don't even know where to begin. I'm genuinely excited. And there's a lot of glare happening today, so I'm sort of, is that duck poop? is kind of worming her way into this higher society, and she's purposely making waves, get herself known, make herself seen, to try and really ingratiate herself. The problem is, at first, what she doesn't realize is the house that she's trying to ingratiate herself into is actually failing. Like, they're actually trying to slow the bleeding stem of their poverty, which is, the funny part about that. So she's trying to ingratiate herself in their life so that she can, claim, posing as their cousin to basically live off their wealth, try and get herself on the what they call the registry, the noble house registry. And by doing so, this is where a lot of the complications come in. Basically, she can't just weasel her way in. She starts trying to earn her way in by getting them a charter. She's trying to, basically, we see Ren go through all this crazy effort to steal information and to use all her street skills and all her street knowledge to kind of basically con and manipulate everyone else around them as well, to what's the word I'm looking for? I keep saying ingratiate a lot, but to basically manipulate a lot of other people of power, nobility, people in the quintet, in the courts, it's so complicated. It's hard to put into words. It's hard to put hundreds of pages of dialogue and context into words. Basically, she uses her looks, her smarts, and her incredible ability to lie to manipulate others to grant her favors, and then with those favors do more favors, and with those favors gain information. With those information, try and blackmail other people in various key pieces to earn her house, or to earn the house she's trying to step into, a charter. And that way they can regain some of the lost fortune that they had. Now, there does look like there is going to be a bit of a romance element with with the son of the house she's trying to ingratiate herself with. And that feels a little bit gross because they are technically cousins, or maybe a second cousin of sorts. But the way you look at their world, it's kind of like when you watch Game of Thrones. You can almost justify it, if that makes sense. You sort of just go, oh, it makes sense in their world. It makes sense to that sometimes you can have a relationship with someone within your own, house, and not necessarily have it be considered taboo or wrong. But it didn't, for me personally, it's always hard to push that aside. It's always hard to push that little naggly voice to be like, you're getting a little too chummy. You guys are cousins, right? You understand that. It's just one lineage too close. But she's not. She's not actually, but he doesn't know that, and neither does everyone else, which is what makes it kind of worse, I think, that everyone's just kind of cool with it. We also have a character called the Rook. Now, the Rook is fucking cool. So the Rook is kind of like the local people's hero. The Rook has almost had a mantle that's passed down from generation to generation, because there's no way it could possibly be one person, because it's lived too long, essentially. But the Rook is the people's hero. The Rook is trying to fight back against the power of the Laganti Quintet. They're trying to, and the Cestian politics. They're just trying to, it's just one man, basically, being a Batman-esque character, but without the money, which is pretty funny. But he's also kind of cool, and Ren runs into this Rook several times over throughout the process of the book, while she is also disguised as various people, like a maid or a character called a Sorza, and things of that description. And it's really, their interactions are quite funny and genuine. I might have to move that camera because that looks really bright. Mi scusi. The Rook. So the thing that makes the Rook interesting is not the character, well, a little bit the character himself, but also for the fact that because Ren keeps meeting the Rook in her various disguises as the maid, as the Sorza, as her noble counterpart that she's trying to portray. She gets different views of the Rook because she keeps ending up in different situations where she meets him, and she can't figure out for the life of her who it is. And she's one of those people that puzzles piss her off because she's like, I gotta know the answer. And so throughout the book, she's trying to peel apart, is it her cousin from the noble house she's trying to ingratiate herself with? Is it a man called Vargo who she does business with? And I'll get to Vargo in a minute. Is it the cop that has a Serrato? His name is Serrato. Is it Grey Serrato? Is he this Rook? No, he couldn't be, because he's a cop and everyone hates cops in the cities and all this shit. Especially since he's a Varesnian cop. He's a local that now works for what they call the Vigil. And the Vigil is kind of owned by the Quintet, and then the Quintet are basically like, yeah, you do what we say and clean up the areas we need cleaned up, but as for everything else, yeah, who gives a fuck? Gotta switch my legs. So yeah, it's interesting. That's what makes the Rook mysterious, is the fact that he's seen in several different lights, so therefore she contemplates who it could be for several different characters that we do see, and it makes it so much fun, so interesting. Really, just because they splay it out and they go, could be this person because of all these reasons, and then you go, yeah, it really could. And then when you have interactions with said character, you go, it could be the Rook. It really could be the Rook. But maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. You have to read it to find out. Another one of the characters that is super, super interesting is Vargo. Now, Vargo is pretty much a slumlord risen on high. And what I mean by that is he doesn't have any noble housing, but what he does have is he does have charters. Now, he came out of nowhere and rose up real fucking fast. He is smart and meticulous. He's powerful. He basically took over one gang at a time until he owned all the lower half of the city, and then with that he then began buying up properties and doing things. But the thing is, he uses his vast wealth very cleverly because he's also trying to improve the lower end of the city. He's trying to raise it up, as well as living kind of the high life. He lives in a better part of the city. He wears nice clothes. Like, he's obsessed with, like, not getting sick and germs and things like that. He tries to carry himself as, one of the Delta gentry. He tries to carry himself as someone with money and class, but everyone knows where he came from, where his power is from. The fact that he controls 90% of the gangs in the area. And people question, like, hey, did you really get those charters and all those trading routes and things through legitimate means, or did you use illegitimate means? So a lot of people don't take him seriously when he tries to actually, ingratiate himself with the higher end of society. He gets invited to things, or he invites himself to things, and a lot of people are just sort of like, this gutter rat fucking dressing like one of us. Like, they don't like it, and they don't really like him, but at the same time, they all want to use him. They all want what he has, and what he has is control and respect and power and money, and they want to use it because they're like, oh, I can't get away with something, but if I employ Vargo can use whatever means necessary, and I don't care, because if anything goes wrong, it all falls on him. So there's that catch-22. Now, I said before, Ren disguises herself as a Sorza. Now, a Sorza is kind of like a gypsy fortune teller, and that's where the part of the book that just hooked me the most, the part of the book that I think will hook everyone the most, is the magic system. The magic system is based off tarot and astrology. I think astrology is a lot of tarot anyway, but it's highly based around this idea of tarot and astrology, and it is so fucking cool. Now, a sorcerer is someone who reads the cards, and a lot of them are charlatans. But then Ren can actually do it. Ren really believes in the cards. Her mother was able to do readings and things like that. And so she genuinely believes in the power, even though she has used this like facade to con people. The tarot, or this kind of magic system, this Numinat as well, is so cool. So imagine basically like almost like a pentagram, but more it behaves like a magical circuit board. Now, the Numinats are based on the astrology aspect, and certain things can only align with certain other aspects of their gods, what they call the masks and the faces. And they have all these crazy creatures that represent like different aspects of their reality and their god, one of them being the Dreamweaver bird. They make this drug called Azar. Now, a lot of the magic and a lot of the things that are incredible but also go incredibly wrong in this book are based around the idea of dreams and the dream realm, or the realm of the walking, or there's so many names for it, but this drug called Azar basically allows people to access the dream point of their consciousness, and a lot of the time it's only for the rich. A lot of the time it's not, it's a little bit recreational, but a lot of the time it's mostly done in celebration. They mix it with champagne and they get drunk on it essentially. But the Numinat system can be small and very precise, and you can use it for, make a little Numinat, and then you place the piece in the center to activate it, and you put a teapot on top and you heat your tea that way. It's very extra, it's very eccentric. Not everybody does that. Very few people do that, even the rich, because it's so pointlessly over the top. Vargo does, though, because Vargo is like, he's a Numinat expert. It's fucking cool. And so we have this idea of reading the fate through the tarot cards and being able to basically perceive parts of the future about one individual or one aspect of your life, which is so cool. And then we have all these ideas of astrology, and like when Ren is trying to move her long con along, if that made any sense, there's parts where family friends of the house she's trying to invade, House Trentimus, I'm probably sure I fucked that up, or Trentimist, they actually have someone who is like an astrological expert, and they do like fortune calendars for the rich and fortune calendars for the holy and everything else, and they need to know her birth date and the time she was born and this and that and everything else, and that helps guide them to an understanding of who she is, what her intentions might be. So similar premise to the readings, but just a different equation, if you will. I don't know how to describe it all, because it's absolutely fascinating, this idea of like, even with the Numinat, and the Numinat has this thing where it's like it changes the whole dynamic of it if you put one piece of it clockwise instead of anti-clockwise, or vice versa. There's like day aspects and night aspects of the same thing. There's feminine and masculine aspects of the same thing, so it constantly just gets more and more complicated, especially when you're trying to achieve a specific goal with it. And the part of this that we see the most is when it's used to manipulate people or things, or in a particular case, halfway through the book, is a new drug called ash. And ash is like Azar. It accesses the dream, except it's like a poison. Someone's used this incredibly complex and fucked up Numinat to essentially reverse engineer the Dreamweaver drug of the Azar so people can access the dream. There's so many aspects to this book, and I don't know if I'm explaining any of it any good to make it sound interesting. The politics are not. I'll move on from all the magic system. Like, I love the magic system. It was so fucking interesting, and it gets a little complicated. It's what they call a hard magic system, not because it's complicated, but because it has a very specific structure. But it's also a hard magic system because it's so complicated and it has so many varying aspects to it, like the earth, the which way, like doing things clockwise to counterclockwise. The day that you do it can affect how it works. Like, quite literally, if it's something if it's something more complicated than making heat for your tea, and you wanna make something massive, like you wanna purge a curse out of someone, which does happen. They purge a curse out of someone. The day that you do it and the time of day that you do it can drastically affect it because of the aligning of all the celestial bodies, and the aligning of the celestial bodies that then are reflective of the gods that they align with and their power on Earth. It's so good. Like, legitimately, it's so good. It's so interesting. But it is so complicated to try and explain without giving you vast details of the situation within the book and spoiling things. So I'm going to move on from that. I'm just going to get into other pieces. The politics is easy, or easy enough. This was a much more simplistic political system, I think, because there was so much to happen in the book. There is a lot happening in this book. It's pretty big. I don't know how many pages it is. Can't remember. It's about 550 odd pages. Looking at the computer screen, I need to be looking at you. It's about 550 odd pages. And yeah, there's a lot crammed in this book. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's the long con. There's the vigilante anti-hero. There's the drug syndicate, and then there's all the politics stuff. And there's even the best part about all of this is that there's even another aspect of it, where we start exploring essentially the idea of the dream. We start exploring like this dream world I was talking about earlier. I'm not going to say what happens or why we get into that, because that's a really, really, really big and really interesting part of the book. And when I was first reading it, I was getting a little bit confused because I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And then I realized where they were and what was going on. And I was like, oh my god. And then it got fucking weird and it got a little bit creepy. There was some heckers fucking shit in here. And of course, as always with people like the street rat trying to become, a noble kind of area, those rags to riches tales, their past always comes back to haunt them. And a big piece of Ren and her bonded sister and her bonded brother's past come back to them. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So yeah, easy politics, which I loved. Easy to follow along. There's a clear, definitive, space and place for each section and subsection of our classes, of our class of people. And then there's just there's that nice clear cut difference of the cultures as well, and then there's that nice middle ground of the cultural blend. I love cultural blends, which is cool. Sorry, I've got bad feet, so I have to keep readjusting myself. The idea of the mask, actually. So throughout a lot of their, it feels a little bit Venetian, if that makes sense. If I feel like they take a little bit of not necessarily carnival, but they take that masquerade little aspect, and it's not like they follow it through entirely, which is good. They just take that tiny little piece from our world, which is that masquerade, and they bring it in and they envelop it in, because the idea, like a lot of the upper class, they always wear gloves. It's not ladylike, it's not gentlemanly to not be out in public without your gloves, or to receive people without gloves. And when they do have their balls and their functions and things, a lot of the time, especially on their big occasions, like on their like ceremonial days and things like that, and like holy days and holy public holidays and things like that, masks are so essential. The masks to represent who you want to be and who you are and who you're hiding, and so many things. Fucking cool. That's all I'm gonna say. It was fucking cool. Does she get what she wants in the end? Does she end up in the House of Registry? I'm not gonna tell you. It's not a standalone. That's what I will tell you. It's not an open shut book. It's not simple enough to close and have everything done in one book. But it's very well done. This didn't feel rushed. I know with the last video I did with Cass, we were talking about that a lot. The second half of the book just collapsed in on its own weight. No questions were answered, things like that. And it wasn't even in a mysterious way. We find out particular answers to things, and then we also get more questions as very massive parts of the plot are resolved. And then we see Ren then determining herself to then try and kick this game up to another notch, kick this con up to another notch. And now that all these things are resolved, all these things have happened, all this stuff with the dream world and the tarot magic and their politics and their city going into fucking chaos, as all these things resolve or they change and become something else, or they become a new problem, or they start up a new system, that feels very natural. It doesn't feel like we're missing out. It doesn't feel cheesy. It doesn't feel like the author dropped the ball. Like it feels it's obviously it is purposeful, but it feels purposeful. It feels natural. It feels like a natural progression of like certain things in noble houses and politics and charters to maneuver a certain way after the events of the book. Characters to behave a certain way in the events and after the events of the book like conclude. And it's set up for a sequel, but it doesn't feel like, and the questions that are left unanswered, or the new questions that are asked at the end of the book, they feel like they're set there on purpose. It doesn't feel like when me and Cass finished our last book, it doesn't feel like we're just sitting there going, so what the fuck happened? Is it over? Is it done? Am I meant to know? Was I meant to figure that out myself, or is there more information? Or like, you don't feel confused. You go, like, I feel invigorated. I want to get the next one, because that's what I feel. I feel invigorated to pick up the next book, because now I gotta know. The question was asked, and I agree. I want to know the answer. I want to know who certain characters are. I want to know what the fuck they're doing, or what they're up to. I want to know how, like, Ren's relationship with her bonded siblings and her new noble family, that her, like, how does that go? You know, what's going to happen there? What's going to happen with the quintet, which is like the 5 houses that control politics? Like, what's happening there? What's happening with the Azar? What's happening with the dream world? Why does so much of this story revolve around Ren, or why is she a linchpin in stuff. We do actually get a fair bit of explanation as to a massive chunk of the story. We do get a big chunk as to why she is kind of a linchpin to that critical point of the story, and it's really, really good. That's what I was telling you about with like the whole dream world thing, and like all the drugs and all the magic system. That's when it gets really intricate and really interesting, and a lot of stuff just cascades, and it like really pushes the book forward. You don't feel like this book goes slow at all. None of this book feels like it moves in a slow pace, even when she's just doing things, like she's out and about and she's just trying to be seen, and she's talking to people and even having like pretty generic conversations sometimes. We get her thought process as well, and she's running laps, like mentally running laps around people, just trying to stay one step ahead, always constantly thinking about what she might say next, because she doesn't want to give people the wrong information and accidentally fuck the whole thing. Like this whole con, like even though her bonded siblings are involved, they're not. They're like side characters. They're there to they're like utensils almost. Large majority of the con relies on her and her ability to like lie and manipulate and think really, really fast on her feet. So nothing feels slow. Nothing feels boring, or like the pace doesn't feel mismatched. I feel like it's just one continuously nice stream of conflict and drama and magic and interest. I love this book, man. I know I say that a lot, like I love the book I read, I love these little aspects about it. I'm pretty sure I loved every aspect about it. There wasn't much, I don't think there was anything I really didn't like about this. Like I said, I got confused one or two times about like the magic, and maybe one time with like the political aspect stuff, but that's because they kind of just threw in an extra party, or like an extra like group opposing everybody. I was like, wait, where did these guys come from? Like, what the fuck is this? And then I sort of, as I read on, it was sort of made more sense. I was like, oh, there was no mention of them before, but they are actually pretty integral to the story and to like the Verdesrian people, and it makes sense that these people would, like this particular group would exist against the quintet. But apart from the fact, because the magic gets very complicated, those are the only two parts where I was like, I don't know what the fuck's happening. And after a quick skim back over for a few pages beforehand and then continuing on reading a few pages afterwards, I was like, I understand what's happening now. I'm not totally fucked. I'm not totally lost. I'm not delirious, or I'm not missing anything I'm not meant to be missing. It was just, I just needed that extra like bit of mental power to be like, dot to dot, ding. Alright, well, you know what I will do? I'll go into the recommendation part of the video. This is the end of the video. Apparently it's going to be a short one, even though this is one of my favourite books of the year. Apparently it's going to be kind of a shorty one. But if you've ever read the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch, that's The Lies of Locke Lamore and the subsequent books following, read this book. That's a long con book. That's considered one of the like best fantasy long cons out there. Read that, but also read this. Read The Masked Mirrors, because that's what it feels like. It feels very, very Scott Lynch-esque. Excuse me. Oh, my feet fucking suck. There we go. Yeah. If you love the idea of fantasy con stories, which I feel like there needs to be more of. They're my favourite so far, I think. If I have a niche, that's it. If you want fantasy long con, pick this up. If you want a very intricate magic system, or you have an affiliation or an affinity with tarot, and I know a lot of people do, a lot of just genuine hippies, but also a lot of people who practice various forms of paganism and Wicca, if you love tarot and astrology and things like that, this is the book for you, man. This is a mad magic system. Fucking complicated, but this is a mad magic system. I love it. I fucking love it. If you love those quick on their feet kind of characters, Ren is one of those characters. If you love those people that just get pulled into more and more complicated situations and they're constantly trying to drag themselves out with lies and manipulation and things like that, get this book, because that's what you're reading. You're reading someone basically pulling themselves out of a whirlpool on a string. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. She puts herself in all this situation, everything just accumulates and accumulates and just starts spiraling out of control and dragging her down. That's what she has to do. She has to pull herself out of a whirlpool on a piece of string. And that string is her lies. Oh, it's so good. So good. Also, if you like a little bit of like political uprising, that's in here too. A little bit of political uprising. A little bit of fight the power. A little bit of like social economic chaos, where the lower end of the scale tries to fight the higher end of the scale. That's cool. Like if you like vigilantes and anti-heroes, the Rook. The Rook is in there. He's cool. Maybe you find out who he is. Maybe you don't. It's a good book, man. It's a good book. I feel like I'm just satisfied. I'm relaxed. I'm giddy and excited because of how good it was, and I want you to read it because of how good it was. I want you to enjoy the absolute living shit out of it. Oh, and it's a beautiful, warm, sunny day, so I'm all relaxed. I want to lie down in the grass. Alright, guys. I don't think I have much more to say other than that. It's a fucking cracker book. I absolutely recommend it. I recommend the shit out of this book. If you love fantasy in general, pick up this book. If you like fantasy con games, absolutely pick up this book. If you love like astrology magic and tarot magic, or just tarot in general, pick up this book. It is so damn interesting. Alright, guys, I think that's it for today. I'm gonna need a nap on this grass. Seriously, this weather, this day is beautiful. I'm gonna have a nap. Alright, until next time, guys. I think the next review I might do is the Ice Planet Barbarians, unless I finish one of my other books first. But look forward to that. That's great. The Mask of Mirrors. Whoop. Get it. Fucking get it.